All right. Hi. Welcome. Can you guys hear me and see me?
Yes.
All right. Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to the session. And I can see a lot of people are still joining. So how about we give them a little bit of time? Meanwhile, let's go over what we are going to cover in this session. I can see some of the people are sending messages in private to me because they're having some trouble in connecting. So let me just respond to them quickly. All right. Hina, you were having trouble with your audio. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, excellent. All right. So welcome, guys. We have around 16 participants who have already joined, and hopefully others will join with time. And let's get on with what we are going to do today. Let me just switch on the screen sharing. All right. Okay. So we are going to discuss the main issues that we face for time management related issues, and especially the drastic change that we are trying to cope up with in this crisis of the whole coronavirus that is going around in the world, right? So I would love for you guys to interact as much as possible. The more interactive session we have, the more takeaways you will have, because I just don't want it to be a slideshow where I just basically go on through the slides and you guys just listen to me like a recording, right? So I want it to be something that you guys can relate to and actually implement in your daily life, right? All right. So I will just request some feedback and interaction as we go along so that I know that I'm being heard loud and clear to everybody.
You are being heard, so go on. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Right. So we are going to discuss how to make the best of your time during the COVID-19 crisis. Okay, Partha, my preference for interaction, of course, I don't want it to be a confusion for everybody. So feel free to write whatever you want in the chat area, and I'll be able to see it right here, as well as everybody else. And other than that, you're free to come on the mic as well and share your experience or your perspectives as we go along. But when you have to come to the mic, and that goes for everybody, just please bear with me to let you be on the mic so that I'm not cutting you off. So whenever you want to speak, just let me know, and then I will put you on the mic as early as possible. Okay? Okay. Now, right. See, because of this crisis, our work life schedule is completely shifted, and this is something very unique for the whole humanity. We had the whole humanity, the whole world had never even imagined that something like this could happen. The entire world, as we say, has grinded to a halt, and businesses are being affected. Our personal relations and our personal lives are being affected a lot, right? So how do we manage our relationships, our times, our work-life balance, and everything around this crisis to make sure that we are coming out as a winner? That is the objective of this session, right? So let me just quickly go through how has it affected for you, right? So we want to understand what effect has it happened on your work routine, on your personal life, on your relationships, and most importantly, how do you think that we will be able to transition back to normal effectively once this is over, and we do pray and hope that it gets over really, really soon. So your personal take on this situation, is it negative, positive? Is it a threat or opportunity? So how about we start there with the interaction? Just let me know what you individually believe it to be. Do you believe it to be a threat or an opportunity? Okay, mixed bag, can speak more. Hina says both. Okay, Partha, you would like to share both? All right. So, okay, Partha, why don't you come and share why you're saying it's a mixed bag for you?
So I'm basically, hi, my name is Partha Srinivasan. I'm from Mumbai. I'm essentially into digital marketing. I'm a consultant. So the reason I say it's a mixed bag is because while business has kind of taken a slowdown and obviously marketing on ground is taken a big hit, people are moving to the digital platform rather haphazardly. So the reason I say it's a mixed bag is because they're not sure of what kind of an animal digital is, and then of course there is the entire aspect that I'm also a trainer, and so a lot of my classes that I go to teach have moved to the online space as well. And while it's a lot more uh, challenging to teach people online, as you would have probably experienced as well. I find that people are hungrier for information and they're reaching out to me more regularly. And the people who are reaching out to me are actually very, very curious to learn. And so, therefore, even though the numbers are not as many as people who come to me offline, so I find that it's a mixed bag. So it's very challenging that I have to keep myself fresh and I have to make myself aware, and therefore um, it's a mixed bag.
All right, thank you very much for that insight. So you're talking about your personal experience, and you believe this is a mixed bag because while there is opportunity, you also have to keep yourself up to date with the demands, right? So that is exactly what is happening around the world now. The organizations have been forced into going digital overnight, whether or not they were ready for it. We have always been talking about working from home. We have been saying that, West has a policy of having some types of jobs always work from home, or at least a couple of days in a week to work from home. But look at what is happening right now, right? The entire spectrum of the jobs have moved online. It does not matter whether you're a frontline staff or a back office staff, or you're in banking industry, or you're in manufacturing industry, or you're in marketing agencies. Wherever you are, you're forced to work from home now. So I take it as an opportunity for me, and I think the way that you have explained to me, I would say that you're also thinking of it as an opportunity because now you have more access to people and easy access to people, right? Danish says it's a threat. Danish, why is it a threat for you?
Um, hello everybody. My name is Danish. I work for a technology company which specifically targets banking products. So the reason why it's a threat is because it's our business in terms of sales. So I take care of sales. So my business overall, in terms of international markets, has been online and offline, as in meetings, both. But right now, because of this pandemic, all my customers internationally or locally have just practically stopped business. So things don't move on at all, and the things which are only moving on, which are already sold, and operational challenges are there, but that has nothing to do with me. So individually, as business development, things have just stopped completely.
Mhm. Yes, agreed 100% that sales, especially people who go and meet their potential customers, this has a big impact. But you know what? Uh, let me go to the next slide, and I will continue what I'm trying to explain here and how you can turn this around into an opportunity. So the last great recession that we had was in December 2007, which lasted up to almost June 2009, right? So this was almost 2 years, 1.5 year. Many of us have personally experienced that recession. People who are here in UAE, they had experienced a huge brunt at that point in time, but globally as well, it was felt, with extreme situations in terms of financial crashes, right or wrong. But let's look at the other side. Okay, there are some great things that we now take for granted that were launched in this great recession area. For example, WhatsApp, Groupon, Instagram, Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest. These all businesses came out of this recession phase and now they're a part of our daily lives, right? So what does that tell us? It tells us that we have to adapt. Specifically for you, Danish, I understand that you're not able to meet your customers, but here's what the customers want right now. Or maybe you can figure something out in your sales pitch now for them is that your customers cannot meet you, but for them right now, what is the most important thing is to be able to serve their customers digitally and remotely because they also cannot meet their own customers. So how about building solutions which will help them connect better online digitally with their customers, not be dependent on these physical connections and physical meetings, because at the end of the day, when this is over, I think the landscape of the entire world is going to change drastically. So let's be prepared for it right up from the beginning. Right, we are being forced to do a lot of things, but if we make them our opportunity, if we make them our strength, we will be on top of the curve and we will come out stronger than ever. Let me ask you one more thing. What is your advantage right now? When you know that you cannot go to work physically, when you know you cannot meet your customers physically, when you know you have to work from your home, what are your advantages right now? Very
Um,
good. Yeah. Yeah.
from my perspective, I think a lot of brainstorming in terms of product development is going on. That you just mentioned, it is true. Yes. Um, I work very closely with WhatsApp also, as you've given an example, in terms of WhatsApp banking. But there are regional challenges in that aspect. But yeah, so one of my advantages is that a lot of big brainstorming is going on in terms of product development, in terms of product growth, in terms of this adaptability of what we are going through and how we can improve our product. So yeah.
Right. See, let me tell you one thing. At the end of it all, we all will are going to have a level playing field because everybody is going through similar challenges. Like I said, it does not matter which field you're in. It does not matter what kind of job role you have. At the end of the day, we are all going to be on the level playing field, which means all of us in every industry will have to figure out a way to make things work more independently of physical logistics and challenges, right? So yes, you're right. When you talk about WhatsApp banking, when you talk about solutions which will help your customers who are in banking industry get to their customers, let me tell you from my personal experience being a banker, we are looking at these problems on a daily basis because as you know, the branches are closed everywhere. Even ATM machines are closed in a lot of places. So how do we connect with our customers? How do we get them to use the banking services? And that's where you come in as a vendor. So keep thinking about building your products in that way. Okay. Faraz says plenty of time at hand. Khurram says more time with family and for personal development. Mustafa says to design and present ideas, thoughts in own and different ways. Okay, these are some very, very good examples. Now, there are pros and cons of having time at your hand, and that is what we're going to figure out in the session, because while a lot of people say that I have a lot of time on my hand, they're also frustrated because they don't understand how this can be your advantage. A lot of people are frustrated staying at home. A lot of people think that uh, I'm not able to work properly. I'm not able to get that environment where I used to work, because when you're in the office, your entire system is around you. Your colleagues are around you. Your bosses are around you who you have to communicate with in order to get approvals and get the work done. Basically, your operations team is with you. So a lot of people say that I don't have the motivation to work. Other than that, we have a lot of negative information going around about the COVID-19 on social media, right? So all of these things are areas where people don't understand how they can take advantage of these. Let me give you a great example that I received today from one of the friends, and I thought I'd just quickly include it in my session. Imagine if we have had this lockdown around 20 years ago. What would have been your response at that point in time? You would be stuck at home with phones that would not be able to connect to internet. You would have dial-up internet. You'd not be able to communicate each other like the way we are doing right now. So if there was no choice to avoid this crisis, I think this is the best time that this could have happened, right? So I can turn this into my advantage. Hina, your routine is crazier now, working from home and at home. Yes, I agree 100%, especially for women who are also helping out and managing their household. This is a very, very challenging time. And I hope by the end of the session, you will have some tips to get control on that and to figure out a way that you can manage the time better, right? So in a way, I take this as an advantage in this time. If there was no way for me to avoid this virus, then I'd rather have it now than have it 20 years ago, right? And I would want to use it for my advantage. So let me ask you, so that this will set the pace for the remaining session, is what are your when I say aspirations, I mean basically what are your what are you looking out for in terms of getting out of this crisis in a stronger and a better way? So it could be some things like you want to learn a new skill, or you want to improve your current professional skills, you want to be able to read books, or you want to be able to listen to podcasts, you want to start a new hobby, or you want to share your knowledge. I think all of these things will take you into a positive mindset, and all of these things will definitely help you grow as well as people around you. At the end of the day, we all have to work together to grow as a community, because we have already seen that we cannot do anything individually. There's no way that we can be successful individually. Now more than ever, we are realizing how much dependent we are on each other. So the reason for me to share this session with you guys was because I thought I had some skills. I thought I knew these skills, and I thought the best time for me to share it with you guys was this. So maybe that's something that you can do. I'm sure everybody here will have some critical skills that they can share with other people. So just pick up your phone, make a video, put it online. If you don't want to get into complications of holding up a webinar and everything, don't get into that. Just make a minute, 2 minute video, put it online. You'll build your community, you'll build your network, you'll build your value as an expert in the field. So what happens at the end of it all, your image as an expert is already out there. People are already relying on you, people are already caring about what you're saying. So you come out as a stronger person out of it, right? So before we move on, let me just tell you very briefly about my background. So my background is almost 20 years in banking industry, but I've been a dedicated trainer for almost 13 years now. And during these 13 years, what I have focused on always is to share whatever knowledge I have. My objective of anybody attending my session is that this should be the last session that you attend before you start to make changes in your life. Otherwise, what happens is people get addicted to attending courses, attending webinars, seminars, going to training sessions. At the end of the day, addiction for anything is negative, it is harmful, and it should be avoided. So my objective is, once we are done with the session, I will be available for anybody to get connected personally on an individual level to help out as much as I can, and develop you in a way that now you know the path towards managing time, you know the path towards taking control of your time and coming out positive and stronger at the end of the whole crisis, right? So today we will basically look at I'll just share some of the objectives that we have for our session today. Time management versus productivity. Uh, it's a thin line between these two. A lot of people get confused. I'll just clarify that quickly. And where we lose times, and this will be very, very important for people, especially like Hina said, her work routine is much more crazier now because she has to manage work from home as well as manage the home. So we'll figure out where are you losing time, where are the leakages, and how to plug those gaps. Perception of time. All right, so this is an ambitious one for me. I'm going to explain what is the time and how do we perceive time. And I'm going to attempt having a long distance activity with you guys. Are you guys up for it?
Yep.
All right, great. So we're going to do an activity once we get there, which will clarify and help out with the perception of time and how we see time. All right, then we'll talk about prioritization itself. Then we'll talk about the biggest thing that you can learn in your life, in my opinion, and this works for anything and everything in your life, is the 80-20 rule. Just very quickly, can I know how many of you have heard of this rule or how many of you know about this rule?
I have heard about it. It's the Price's Law.
Right? I know it. All right, excellent. That makes my job easier. Yeah. Awareness exists. All right, great. So we'll just clarify very quickly what it is once we get to that point, and then we will see how we can implement it in our daily activities to take more control of our time. Then I'm going to give you 4 methods of prioritization to start with. Now, these are not, there are many other ways to prioritize time, and there are I have a much detailed course, certification course, in which we go through a lot more methods. There's no wrong or right, by the way, guys. So it all depends on what is best suited for you. So you gotta, sometimes, especially when you're starting, you gotta try out some of the methods. But these 4 methods will get you started on the right direction. And finally, we will look at the real life examples and implementing these methods into your challenges so that we know between these 4 methods, what can you apply for your challenges. All right. So moving on, by the way, if you have any question at any point in time, just let me know in the chat and then I can give you time to ask your question. Right. Moving on to time management versus productivity. Time management basically is something that you would have heard of these things in tandem with each other. But just to clarify the difference, we'll start off with what is productivity. Productivity, very simply, when we see this definition in your human resource planning, we see this definition in engineering concepts. Productivity is basically the amount of the work that you're doing in a given amount of time. Right? So basically efficiency, as we call it. So if somebody in your office is able to do a lot more work in the same amount of time, then he's said to be an efficient resource, right? So productivity is very simply the amount of work done in a given amount of time. But when we come to time management is basically, it's a science, it's a process of planning and exercising control on specific activities in that work that you're going to do. So when I talk about amount of work done, I have to break down that particular big task into small chunks, and I have to figure out how to spend time on those activities to increase the productivity, right? Or as we say, work smart rather than work hard, right? So when you talk about time management, we will talk about juggling different activities. Those activities in today's time, in this situation that we are all locked inside, in isolation at home, we have to juggle between work, between our social life, between our families, between our hobbies, between our personal interest and our objectives. All of these things we have to somehow manage and still be able to come out as efficient and important individual in our, let's say, in our career and in our office roles. Because at the end of the day, if you start neglecting that, eventually somebody is going to ask questions, right? So there will always be deadlines, there will always be targets, there will always be somebody looking over you from your office, your boss, somebody. But how you manage within the confines of your home is what will make the difference. Okay. Any question till this part? No? Okay. All right. So we say basically time management is a subset of productivity, but it is the biggest subset. So there are many, many elements of being a productive person. That's not the topic of the day today, but time management is the biggest chunk when it comes to the elements of being productive. And time management, the biggest thing is you need planning and you need willpower. If you don't have either of these, time management will never be successful for you, right? So we talk about planning, we talk about willpower in a lot of other things. Can you give me a couple of examples? What is the most common example of something that we talk about all the time and we say, I'm going to do it, but we never end up starting it in the first place? Okay, I guess everybody got it. That's great. So that's the biggest example that I see in in everybody's life is yes, exercising, working out, taking care of your health, losing weight, and I should say that for myself as well. So uh, we talk about losing weight, but what do we do? Okay, let's look at this example for a minute. On a daily basis, you're talking about losing weight to your friends. You're talking about different diet plans. You're researching different methods, easy working out at home, with weights, without weights, XYZ, different types of easy or difficult diets to follow. But why is it not working out? Because we're not starting on anything. It does not matter what diet or what workout plan you start off, as long as you start, it will make some difference. Mustafa has a bigger message here. Mustafa, would you like to come on the mic and share this with us?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Basically, when we were talking about the use of time, that how we can utilize our time or how we can plan it, and you told us about the 80-20 rule. Through that thing, I picked up this thing, which I have been studying, that which is stated to be a law of three, which says that since whenever we try to do something, many things come before us in our mind. So why not to have only three things to place before us, to just have focus on them, through which this law of three have derived, which I have tried to share over here, which states that no matter how many tasks you have to complete in your work or in your daily tasks, there are deemed to be like three most important tasks which usually account for 90% of the value of your contribution to yourself on a personal level or to your company in a professional capacity. So
Okay,
I thought
that's an
here.
excellent concept. Yeah. So great. It makes a lot of sense, and we are going to cover something very closely related to what you just said here. I have a point about this in the session with a slight change, but the overall objective, as you said, is very common, just to prioritize those things which make the most impact. So yes, thank you very much for sharing that. So the thing is, whatever you do, you have to start it. I mean, until and unless you start anything, you're not going to achieve any result. So out of today's session, if you just listen to the session and you forget it and you don't take any action, this whole session, the 2 hours that you're spending with me, is a waste of time. And at this point in time, if you think that this is you're here just to listen to me speak, or just to see what this session is going to be about, and then not take any action on it, then let me be the first one to tell you not to waste any more of your time, because I would want you to take specific action points at the end of the session, and not just take points but implement them. Now, That is why I had sent you the email where I had said it is best that you have something to take notes on. Maybe have a notepad or write something digitally if you want that way. No worries, but it should be something that you will have with you. Action plus consistency. Yes, we will come to the consistency part as well, but you're very right. Actions have to be there consistently, repeatedly, so that they give you results. So, in order to make the most of our time management session, you will need to look at your action points, note them down, relate them, and we will do that in today's session. We will relate them to your personal challenges, and then we will come up with an action plan which will be customized for you. And then maybe later we can catch up again. Feel free to connect with me later on as well if I can help you improvise them and get to the results that we're looking for, right? So now, all right. Now we all agree that we are losing a lot of time, but we don't know how and where. So when we talk about losing time, there are some elements of which are controllable and some which are not controllable. Okay, what is the biggest thing at this point in time that is out of our control, out of our hands? Lockdown, COVID. Danish, I haven't changed anything in my mic setting. I don't know why you're feeling a distortion. Is anybody else having trouble in the audio? Okay, all right. Sounds fine. All right. So yes, you're right. COVID-19, the coronavirus, this crisis is the biggest uncontrollable factor, which is common all around the world at this point in time, right? Because of this coronavirus, something else that has impacted, which we cannot control, is market conditions. And what is going to happen after this to the economy? All of these things are something that we cannot do anything on. But just look at yourself right now. What are you most worried about? You're most worried about exactly these three things, right or wrong? If you can't control these things and you're still worried about the things that you cannot control, at the end of the day, you are going to be stressed and you're going to start having panic attacks, right? So rather than focusing on these uncontrollable things, let us look at where we are losing time at this point in time and then figure out how to make the best of that time. So somebody earlier in the chat had already written procrastination. And yes, procrastination is the biggest issue that we can control at this point in time. Why? Because when you're at home, you tend to delay a lot of activities, even your official activities a lot of times, or you're not as efficient as you are in the office. Then we all like to spend time binge watching. Money Heist these days? That is my favorite series at this point in time. But everybody is busy, whether it is Netflix or it is just going down the rabbit hole of YouTube or TikTok or any other. So once you pick up your phone, you forget to just keep it down. You know, and before you know it, you spend 2 hours on it. So two of my personal biggest weaknesses are Money Heist and Candy Crush. Right. And then we have, because of all of this, we have very, very irregular sleep patterns. So before this whole situation, if you had to be in office at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning, and you knew that you had to spend an hour in traffic, getting ready, getting out, so you would probably wake up at 6 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning to be at office at 8 o'clock. Now, because you don't have that travel problem anymore, what time do we wake up? 7:30, 7:50, 7. Okay, 11, 8, 9. Wow. Okay. Very good. Okay, Abdul Rahim, you're able to wake up at 5 a.m. I salute you, brother.
Even no change in my routine also, Farrukh. It's a special day. I still woke up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, okay. That's excellent if you're able to maintain that same time for your day. And I think that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. And if Faisal or Abdul Rahim, you have already taken control of that, or anyone else, Shahid, anyone else, Mustafa 630, whoever is maintaining their own previous old timeline is already one step ahead of the rest of us. So that is great to hear. And at the same time, why is it happening? Because we are sleeping late, right? Part of it because we are not as exhausted mentally and physically like we used to be when we used to come back from work and all of that traffic time and all. And but mostly because of these three reasons. Our sleep pattern has gone out for a toss, and you lose one day, and that has a domino effect of affecting the entire week or entire month, right? Now, we will talk about basically the controllable parts. And out of the controllable options also, if you take care of the first two, your sleep pattern should come back into their place, right? Now, before we move on, I want to do that activity that I had asked you guys to do. And if everybody is okay with it, we will do the activity remotely. It's a difficult one. I usually do this in my session and I have problems when I'm doing it physically in my physical sessions. But if you guys are up for it, here's what we're going to do. I want all of you to have your phones in front of you. If you are attending the session through your phone, maybe if you can pick something else, all I need is for every one of you to have a stopwatch in your hand. Can we do that? All right. So we want to have everybody have a stopwatch in their hands. Let me know when you are ready. I will give you instructions here. And I just don't want you to cheat. All right. So there is no right or wrong answer, but we all have to do it together. That's the important thing. We can't do it separately. So we'll start off once everybody's ready. Ready? All right. All right. Since everybody's ready, let's do this. Now, what I'm going to do is when I say go, you're going to start the stopwatch and you're going to close your eyes. Okay. And then just don't do anything else. Just keep your eyes closed. And when you, in your mind, when you think 1 minute has passed, you're going to open your eyes and you're going to stop the stopwatch and just don't say anything. Just don't write anything in the chat. Just stay quiet until I ask you to write your answers. Okay. So when I say go, we are going to all start our stopwatches and close our eyes. And whenever we feel individually that a minute has passed, we are going to stop the stopwatch. Ideally, no, you should not count, Raza. The idea is not to judge your counting ability of how well you can count to 60. So, but basically, uh, I just want to understand. I just want you to see, you to realize, and we'll do that. I'll come to the takeaways of this activity after we're done. All right. So are we ready, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mustafa, just to very quickly repeat, when I say go, you are going to switch on, you're going to start your stopwatch, and then you're going to close your eyes. And once you think individually that 1 minute has passed, you're going to stop your stopwatch. I don't want to know how many seconds have actually passed when you look at your stopwatch. I don't want you to write anything or say anything. But you're going to stop the stopwatch when you think 1 minute has passed. Is that clear, Mustafa? Okay. All right. So it's 3, 2, 1, and go. So just close your eyes. Don't look at any watch. Don't look at the stopwatch going by. There's no right answer or a wrong answer. It's an individual activity. It's an individual exercise which will tell you about your perception of time. So whenever you're ready, when you stop the stopwatch, just type done in the chat. So I know people have stopped. All right. All right. So I guess everybody has stopped more or less. All right. Now is the moment of truth. Now let's type what can you see on your stopwatch? What is the actual time? All right. All right. All right. Great. So as you can see yourself from all the answers, some people had stopped much earlier. Some people went over 1 minute. 27:30, 1 minute 3 seconds, 1 minute 12 seconds, 50 seconds, 53 seconds. So what does it show? We say 1 minute is 1 minute, but everybody is perceiving time differently, right? Some people thought 1 minute is over in just 12, 13, 30 seconds. So what does it mean? It means when we talk about perception of time, if you want to look at it academically, it is basically your experience or the sense of the time passing by measured with your own perception. But look at it practically speaking, it is how we are responding to our environment, right? Danish, I'm going to link it to how we value our time. But right now we're talking about how you are perceiving time passing by based on your responses to your environment. So let me tell you one thing. And we've all gone through these situations. If you are at your office and you're under an extreme tight deadline to rush into a meeting and you rush to have lunch just before the meeting, right? Just imagine you'd be rushing through your lunch. Ideally, you would want to skip your lunch. But if you'd be having your lunch, you'd be rushing through it because you would have to, you would want to get into that meeting as soon as you can. You will not realize how much time is remaining because you would think that the time is running too fast. Isn't that what happens? Yet at the same time, if you're sitting outside a hospital, in a hospital waiting room, where if somebody is going through a surgery and you're waiting for the doctor to come out of the operation theater to tell you the good news, how slow does this time pass? Every second, every minute feels like a year, doesn't it? Right? If both the times were same, even then you would experience it differently. And that is not because of the time being different, but because of your response to the environment around you. And this is exactly what happens in our daily lives. Because of the situations that we are in, we tend to respond in a different way to the environment around us. And that actually dictates how we perceive time, which is why when you start to go down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos or playing games on your phone or watching a TV series, right? You don't realize how much time has passed. And this is why when you wake up, you don't know how much time have you already missed of the day, right? Huram says how fast time passes depends on which side of the bathroom door you are. Exactly. That's a very good example, Huram. And we've all gone through that one as well. Okay, look at this image here. 1440. What is this 1440? Can somebody tell me what this signifies? What do you understand? Know me. Time. It's not 14:40 in the afternoon. Minutes. Mm, halfway there. These are the minutes in a day. Yeah. So 1440 is the number of minutes that you get in a day, and you have to use them wisely. I'll tell you my personal example. On my desk at my workstation in my office, I have a huge, I mean, it's basically a A3 paper printout with just these words, just these letters like this, numbers, 1440, and I've just pasted it on the side of my cubicle. Nothing else, just blank like this. And half the time, all right, Abdul Rahim, we'll see you after the prayers. Half the time when people come to talk to me, they look at that image and they say, what is this 1440? And I tell them, this is the number of minutes that I have in a day, and I want to choose how to use them. I want to choose which ones are important for me. And without being impolite, without saying anything upfront, I'm giving everybody a message that my time is important. You can talk to me, but only if it is important. And then I will choose whether I'm able to give you that time at that particular. So if somebody randomly walks up to my cubicle, I might not be available. I might be busy. So this is just a polite way of me saying it. But more than that, I have this drilled up and embossed here, right? So now what happens is every time you think about this 1440 minutes in a day, and every time you remind yourself that I have to use these minutes sensibly, then only you can prioritize your activities. Now, again, out of these 1440 minutes, or some hours rather, are beyond negotiable. So we don't call them as you can't negotiate with them. For example, you have to have your sleep, right? So ideally speaking, you should have at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep. So minus that from the number of hours, you left with what, 18 odd hours? So in a day, right? So you use those time, and then you have traffic time, you have travel time. When you're at home, you're managing maybe your kids, your spouse, you're managing a lot of things at work, because the problem these days is sometimes in some households, both those spouses are working. Who takes care of the kids? How do you engage the kids? After every little while, a kid will walk up to you and say, I'm bored and I want to get engaged in something. So we have especially people who have teenagers or very young kids. They see a lot of problem. Yes, I remember yesterday, a couple of days back, I was having a video conference with a friend of mine, and I almost had a BBC moment where my daughter walked in, and but luckily she realized that I was in a meeting and she went out. But yes, these are big challenges. So we have to look at how the kids also manage their time, right? So we have to prioritize stuff, because when you prioritize, that's when you grow as a person. When you prioritize and you keep your milestones, when you achieve your milestones, that's when you are proud of what you're completed, right? Uh, you feel confident about your abilities, you look forward to undertaking the similar projects in the future, and you're helping others. And what happens when you help others? You receive the acclaim of your peers. Now, before we go on to the methods of prioritization and basically actually uh, linking all of those things with your personal challenges, we'll go into a little bit more detail of the 80-20 rule. Good thing that most of the people already know what 80-20 rule means. Basically, what it means is 20% of your effort should be able to give you 80% of the results. If you do your prioritization right, 20% of your efforts in those tasks will give you 80% of results. And let's look at it on a practical level. 20% of your employees give you 80% of results. We see this example particularly in sales. When I do a lot of sales training, the biggest issue that people complain about is I'm not recognized enough. My boss does not appreciate me. I am struggling so hard. The market is bad. What to do? But if you look at it from the employer's perspective, if 20% of people are, and this is, by the way, statistically and practically true. If 20% of my, yes, Danish, I'll just come back to it. If only 20% of my employees are giving me 80% of results, why do I need the remaining 80% at all? I can just reduce my cost, which will help me get a better profit margin, and just get rid of those 80% of employees. That's how your employer thinks. So if you are somehow not able to be productive for your organization, that's what your employer is thinking about you. Danish, this was the slide before the 80-20 rule. Let me know when you want me to move ahead. Anybody wants to share any personal example of 80-20 rule? All right, let's move on then. Now, if you're a business owner or if you're managing your business, your department, your sales, like for example, Danish Siddiqui, I think, yeah. Danish Siddiqui was talking about his sales targets. So you would know, Danish, that 20% of your customers actually contribute to 80% of your targets,
Correct. That's true.
right? So that's where you focus on. Simple. You prioritize those 20% of customers and you somehow build deeper relationships with them and build better solutions for them to get more revenue out of them. Look at your personal life. Out of all your possessions, 20% are those which give you the most value, make you the happiest, right? Only 20% of your time that you do spend doing something gives you 80% of your happiness in a day. Same thing for your relationships. 20% of people you know make you the happiest. You want to be, if you look at your friend circle or if you look at your social life, why is it that every time that we think about meeting somebody, the same four names come in our minds? I'm sure everybody knows many people around us, but why do we consistently want to meet the same people again and again? Because those are the people who make you the happiest and who help you relax, and they are only 20% of the people that you know. You can try this out in anything. There's another another activity, in fact, we can do. Let's take an example. I think most of the people here like cricket. Okay, so if you like cricket as a sport, let me ask you, if I were to ask you on the top of your head, how many teams can you think of? Right? Let's put a number to that. Now, if I say out of those teams, so Nomi, you're not interested in cricket. That makes the two of us. But I think it's the most common example that I can give. You can think of any other sport that you can that you're interested in. This example will work practically for everything. So if you can think of, let's say you have top out of the entire cricket world, you have 3 or 4 top teams in your mind. Now, if imagine if every team has 11 players, then you have 33 or 44 players in your mind right now. So if I were to ask you now, out of those 44 or 30, 40 or 30 players, how many can you think of as your favorites? Let me tell you, they're going to be somewhere around 4, 5, 6, 8 maximum, right? Guess how much 6 or 8 is of 30 or 40 players, right? So again, your top favorite players out of every single player in that sport in the world, you like only the top 20%. There you go. And because of those 20% of players, you basically like the whole sport of cricket. Would you care less if the remaining 80% of players stop playing cricket tomorrow and you have fresh faces? But it would hurt you if either one of those 20% players suddenly announce retirement. Right or wrong? So 80-20 rule basically applies to practically everything that you can think of in your life. I always tell my wife, when you are cooking food, you're spending half of your day in the kitchen, right? There's nothing wrong in cooking food enough for 3-4 days in one go. So your effort will be less and your result will be much bigger. So this is how you prioritize and this is how you manage your time. Some other examples, like you wear 20% of the clothes that you own most of the time, especially guys, they would probably have only 2 or 3 favorite pair of jeans or t-shirts that you would want to keep on wearing again and again, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is 20% of the day, if spent with focus, can increase your skills and your productivity by 80%. Does it make sense? Because if there is any question at this point in time, I would love to answer them before we move on to the actual methods and actual techniques that we are here for. Partha, this is my 20%, by the way. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm honored. I hope you will have 80% of your value back from this time. Right. Should we move on, guys? All right. Now we're going to look at 4 basic techniques to start with, which you can start implementing. Now, during this lockdown situation, there are multiple things that you are sort of juggling. You're juggling your kids, your spouse, your work chores, your office chores, your assignments, your deadlines, targets, your sales objectives, multiple things, right? So the most common thing that we tend to use, and that I think everybody does it by default, is to make a to-do list, right? When we are going for grocery, we make a list. When we are thinking about having a party and inviting somebody in that party, we make a list. When we are thinking about, where do we want to go for vacation, we make a list. So we make lists almost very, very regularly. And that is the biggest problem that I see with the to-do list method. So I'm going to give you a tip how to maximize the efficiency of a to-do list. The first one is you are not going to add a to-do list with more than 10 items in the next day. Now, there's one more method that I'm not discussing here right now. That's a much more advanced method, which ties it into how to develop a to-do list. But the 2 things that are necessary to make the to-do list most effective is you will do it a night before you go the day. So before you go to bed, you will have to make the to-do list for the next day. And like I said, guys, you will need to put a pen to the paper to do this. Otherwise it'll just be like our gym routine and our diet plans, which will never work, right? So you have to start doing it. Actually take out a pen and paper or open your phone, take out your any list app, and just add maximum of 10 items. If you think that you have so much to do in the next day, then start striking out items after item number 10. Because trust me, no matter how busy you think you are, you will never, ever have more than 10 items. If you do, then you are just basically not putting your mind into any kind of prioritization. So step number 1 is you're going to make a to-do list before you go to bed for the next day. Step number 2 is you're going to maximize a to-do list to a maximum of 10 items. Yeah, Danish, there are many tools available for all of these methods that I'm going to tell you today, and some others as well. But without getting into the complication of these tools, I just want to explain the concepts, and I just want you to start somewhere. You can use any tool. You can use I think the easiest method that I like to use is the calendar method. I just put everything on my calendar, right? So if you're on the Google platform, then your Google Keep and your Google Calendar and everything is tied in together. So everything that I write in my Google Keep app, for example, can also be calendarized and vice versa. So anyway, so whatever method you use, just make sure that you have 10 items maximum, and then you're going to write. Okay, welcome back, Faisal. I think your chat is set to private. Just set it uh, to everyone, please. Okay, Khurram has a question. How do you define an item? I can do 25-minute items in a day, but definitely not 10 1-hour items. Do we have a definition of item? Yes, Khurram, that's a very good point, and that is also coming up in the other 2-3 methods that I'm going to share today. So yes, the timeline is very important, and I have a method specifically for that. So right now, what I'm trying to explain is that you're maximizing your to-do list to a maximum of 10 items, and in terms of priority of the 80-20 rule. So now I'm looking at the 80% of the result that I want. I am prioritizing the list of 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So number one is going to be the item which is giving me the biggest chunk of that 80% result that I want. Or if it's a work item, then maybe the immediate next due item in my deadlines. If it's, for example, something that I have to manage at home, even if it's something that I have to, like, for example, cooking food, like I said, I will put it, but I will put it in a way of priority. It might not be number one, number two, wherever it comes, but then I will do it in bulk. So once I have those 10 items and I have ranked them from 1 to 10 in order of priority, then I will start operating on them. Because the moment I start working on those items, the moment I check each and every item, I tick box, I delete it from the list. My list gets smaller, number one. And number two is it gives me a sense of achievement. So I always say any kind of method that you use, anything that you do, reward and recognition is extremely important. And personal reward and recognition is more important than somebody else's appreciation for you. We use this term in our CVs, I'm a self-motivated person. But do we actually know the meaning of what is self-motivated? I don't think so, right? Because I say always tie your milestones with a reward system and have that for yourself. It could be something as simple as going and buying a new pair of shoes for women, especially, or for guys, what? Having some me time, going into the nothing box, right? As they say. So could be different things, but make sure that you are rewarding yourself. So as soon as you are able to strike off items from your to-do list, your to-do list becomes smaller and your time remaining gets bigger and bigger. Your 80% of the chunk, the pie, this 80% starts getting filled. All right. For every activity in this 80% pie, you will have to make sure that it is on the topmost item. So the biggest chunk of the pie will be taken up by the item number one, ranked number one, then number two, number three, so on and so forth, right? Going on to the next one, eat the frog. I don't think anybody likes to eat the frog. And that's the point of the whole method. So if there is something that you have to work on, which is necessary, which is maybe if you're using a combination of these two methods, although this can be, eat the frog can be used independently as well. So the way that you use it is that you will just say, what is my most difficult and the most annoying and the most nauseating thing that I want to do tomorrow? which I cannot avoid. That's called the frog. And you eat the frog first thing in the morning. Because the moment you eat the frog, the rest of the day seems easier. If you do the most difficult task, and this is 180 degrees, this is completely opposite to the way we function and the way we work normally. We normally tend to procrastinate and we tend to push down the most difficult thing that we have to do the next day. Isn't that true? It does not matter even if you have a deadline, you would just, I mean, and for example, for kids, for teenagers, for students, you wouldn't want to study. I mean, you would say, "Oh, okay, I have 3 days remaining in this exam, that exam. I'll study just a day before, night before." And at work, we do this all the time. I mean, the moment you have to sit down, even if you have to write an important email, what do? I mean, you tend to either get distracted or you try to do something else before you get onto that email. Eventually, you end up pushing it down, right? So you have to make sure you force yourself to eat the frog first. And if there are multiple frogs in your list, then eat the biggest frog first. So okay, Hina says this will be number 10 on my to-do list. So now from now on, just try to reverse your to-do list actually. Keep it as number 1 on your to-do list, right? And I'll give you an example that is trained in military schools around the world. The first thing that people are taught, especially this is the technique that Marines use a lot, U.S. Marines, is that the first thing that you have to do when you wake up is to make your own bed. And I don't know, I haven't done that in a very long time myself, but trust me, you will realize that sometimes that is the biggest frog for you to jump out of the bed. So the idea is not just to make your bed for the sake of making a bed. The idea is to jump out of a bed. So basically, you have to eat the biggest frog first, and then move on to smaller and smaller frogs. Okay, so this is another way of prioritization. Remember, guys, we're talking about prioritization, and if we go by our priority list, then eventually you will be able to maximize the time that you're spending. Again, going back to our earlier slide of productivity, most amount of tasks done, most amount of work done in any given time. So you will be able to do that easily if you follow this technique. Now, the Pomodoro technique is an interesting one. It's not for everybody, but I think it works brilliantly for people who are starting off with prioritization. So prioritization, why do we even talk about doing all of these activities? Why not just start with any particular activity and finish it off? So one example was when we looked at the 80-20 rule. We want to maximize the ROI, the return on the time investment that we're doing on our activities. But more importantly, we are looking at basically the rewards that we are giving to ourselves, because that sense of achievement is the biggest motivator that will keep you going in. And what happens with people who start off with this activity, this prioritization in the beginning, is that you lose focus and you get distracted very, very easily. So for them, the Pomodoro technique is the best one to start off. No, Hina, I want you to focus specifically and forcibly start off with the biggest frog. Try to do that, and I'd be happy to help on a personal level as well. Because trust me, I mean, if you eat the biggest frog first, the level of achievement, the sense of achievement that you will get will be, I mean, tens of times better more than what you're getting right now. You can start off with the Pomodoro technique. Now, what happens with the Pomodoro technique is, this is, of course, once you have your lists done, once you know what you're supposed to do tomorrow, you decide on one particular task to work. You work on it without any distraction, no matter what happens. And the best thing, what I try to coach my students is that you switch off your phone or put it on airplane mode. Okay, now you work on it for 25 minutes. You put an alarm for 25 minutes. And there's a reason I am asking you to put an alarm is because I don't want you to work more than 25 minutes on that particular task, even if you think you have high level of concentration. And the reason is because I know if you're starting, I know you will get distracted. I know you will lose concentration and focus, and eventually you will give it up. I don't want you to give up, right? So what I want you to do is work on that task for 25 minutes straight without distraction. And then once the alarm rings for 25 minutes, take short 5-minute break, and then go back to 25 minutes. And you continue doing that until the task is over. And once that one task is over, then you take a slightly longer break. Now that will depend on how soon you can get back and how many important stuff or tasks do you have in your list to go back to working. But you have to take a slightly bigger chunk of break, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, anything which is bigger than the 5-minute break. So what you're doing here is you're continuously keeping your mind busy. And if you're getting distracted, you're pushing yourself to go back, right? So this, I would recommend this for people who have not done this before. I would recommend you tie up the to-do list method and the Pomodoro method together. Okay, start there. Danish, my major issue is concentration, attitude towards work, the quiet corner. Next level of a quiet corner, okay. Corner for work. Home has never been that place since school time. Allow me to explain when this topic comes. All right, I will give you the opportunity in a bit. Hina says breaking the time into chunks. Actually, yes, for a single task. Yes, you're right. So you take one single task and then you work on it for 25 minutes straight without any distraction. If you're a person who gets distracted very easily, then you please switch off your phone and put it on airplane mode. So no notifications, nothing. All right, that has to be strictly followed. And then you take a break of 5 minutes once the 25 minutes are over, in which I use this technique with my children when they're studying, and I tell them, you cannot even be sitting at that same table for the 5-minute break, even if you don't have anything to do. So you have to change your scenery around you. You have to get up, take a walk, do anything. Just don't look at the work that you're doing. Get your mind distracted out of that. So try that. Usman says, won't the break going to break? All right, won't the break going to break the momentum, especially if you're making reports or crunching numbers? Yes, Usman, that can happen. And like I said, there's no right or wrong. You will have to experiment. The reason this technique can be useful in even in those circumstances is because a lot of times, and I have suffered it myself and I've seen my colleagues suffer from it, is when you're too engrossed into making reports, you sometimes get so bogged down and so hard focused that you lose some important elements and to double check. And then, especially in reports, one number goes wrong, 20 other reports goes wrong. So sometimes it does help to take that break, to free your mind, distract your mind, change the scenery, come back, and sometimes you would really figure out a mistake that you've done. This is another, the way I learned this technique, this lesson was once very early on in my career. I used to be extremely short-tempered and I used to write horrible emails to anybody and everybody who would just try to, even disagree with me on any idea, and I would just bash them crazy on emails. And my boss at that time said, listen, once you have written your email, just pause, please. Go out, don't sit on your desk, save it in your drafts, go out, have a round, have a cup of coffee or something, come back, read your email again. And lo and behold, I mean, it changed the whole perspective. I realized that I was being very unreasonable. That changed a lot, in fact, in the way that I do my work now. So this is very easy to implement, and it is very friendly to those people who are having difficult time in focusing. And then we have what we call as a snowball technique. So now snowball technique is something that is also trained for financial management as well, and we implement it on our productivity management as well. What snowball technique says is that you keep on adding the time. So let's suppose I have a task and I have a deadline to complete a task, let's say, yeah, Danish, you're right to a certain extent. Yes, ideally, see, there is it's a gray line. I mean, gray area about multitasking. Multitasking usually, unfortunately, has turned into a completely different tangent than what it actually is supposed to be. Allow me to complete this, then maybe I will elaborate on that. But what I was telling you about snowballing technique is, so for example, if I have a deadline and I think I have to finish a task, let's say till 10 in the morning, and I sit down, I have spent, now let's go back to my total time that I'm spending in the day sitting at home working on my office stuff, right? So ideally speaking, if I was supposed to give the exact same amount of time that I would give in office, then I would be on my desk logged in at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. and be continuously logged in till say 5 or 4 or whatever is your off time. And in that, I'll be doing different tasks. So what I do is when I focus on a single task at one point in time, as soon as I have this, now let me attach it to the Pomodoro technique. When I have that 25-minute timeline finished for one task, right? I can then go to the next level. I have that level of focus. I have that level of priority that I can connect the first 25 minutes that I was spending on the first task to the 25 minutes for the next task. So as my productivity increases, as my concentration increases, the next level would be to increase that time of 25 minutes up to 50 minutes. So what I'm doing is for every task, so this is also sometimes called a time slicing technique. And this is where I wanted to elaborate a little bit of multitasking. In real life scenario, you can never really work on a single task. You have to look at multiple things, especially in this crisis when you're working from home, you would have a lot of distractions. So you would slice your time. Okay, next 15 minutes, I'm not going to answer to anything. I'm going to finish this off, and then next 10 minutes, I'm going to do something else, and so on and so forth. So once I finish a task, that 15-minute slot that I had for this task A now becomes a part of my task B. So let's suppose if my task A had 15 minutes and my task B had 10 minutes. Now, once I'm done with task A, my task B becomes 10 plus the 15 minutes from task B. So now I have more time on my hand to finish task B, which means my task B will be finished sooner than anticipated. And once I do that, then the task C comes in and so on and so forth. Okay, does it make sense? Mustafa says goals are not unreasonable. Goals are not unreasonable, but timelines could be at times. Yes, I agree 100%. In fact, this is the case most of the time. So you are given with what we consider to be unreasonable timelines. And that is the exact purpose of this session, my friend, because if you're able to take control of your time, and if you're able to take control of the emotions of and your emotional response to the environments, then we go back to the perception of time. So if you're able to control your emotions and how you respond to those environments, in your case, like you said, unreasonable timeline, you are able to, your perception of time will improve, and you're able to have better control on the time. And that's basically how you become more productive, right? All right. So now before we move on, I'll just give you, let me just give the chance to Danish Siddiqui. Okay, Danish, you wanted to explain a little bit more into your issue of concentration.
Okay, so I'll tell you, my office, my boss, he has created, he has given us all my team members have created the opportunity of having our own quiet place where we can concentrate. Worst case
Right.
scenario, if the workspace has a lot of people, we are even allowed to go down, sit somewhere quiet, do our
But this is in
work.
your office time, right? Office, right?
Office, I'm saying. And
All right.
apart
Okay.
from that, so I'll also explain when I'm playing badminton, because of the environment which is around me, regardless of whatever is happening, I'm concentrated to that activity. For example, when I went for my religious activity like Umrah in Saudi Arabia, because of the
Hmm.
environment, I was just restricted and concentrated towards doing that, and I was doing that perfectly. Little
Right.
time, but achieving more. Right
Hmm.
now, the environment is playing a very major role in that, that distortion in creating
Right.
that kind of environment for my work, for that
Right.
productivity. So, and
Right.
it's been there since school. I mean, since school, my father would tell me play games which are time bound. So I would have
Hmm.
breaks which were more productive, and I would enjoy those breaks and then come back to work again or study again.
Right.
So
In fact, that's a brilliant thing, actually.
yeah, so I would play things like Red Alert or let's say Counter Strike. It's time
Hmm.
bound. You have to achieve what you have to, and then it ends. The moment you
Right.
know that when it ends, it ends. It doesn't restart. It is productive. So
Right.
nobody will stop you. You have and you achieve what you want to.
Hmm.
Fun plus work.
Right. So, all right. So I think what you're trying to say is your biggest issue right now is having that isolated space while working from
Yeah,
home,
yeah. So
right?
work is basically
So,
not that isolation. Yeah, which I want, and I want
yeah.
isolation.
So,
I like.
okay. So now again, that is a challenge for and which will present itself uh, different in different way to different people. But just to make the best of the situation that you have, I would say if you can find a small space on the corner, in a corner, or in your room even, just have lock your room. I mean your bedroom. For me, I don't know whether you can see behind me. So it's a very small space that I have, which is my studio, which is where I come to relax, which is where I come to develop my training programs, to make my videos for my YouTube and do my podcast and everything. And this is my small studio. This is actually a maid's room in our apartment. So whatever you can figure out a way to be isolated. Now, if it is difficult for you to be isolated for a longer period of time, then you go back to the Pomodoro technique, my friend. So because it is easier, and feel free to customize these times. 25 minutes, 30 minutes is just a benchmark, which because you see, if you just keep 10 minutes, you'll barely be able to achieve anything in the task. If you just work for 10 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. So it's just basically a benchmark rule of thumb kind of thing. But feel free to experiment with it. But I would suggest that isolation time is extremely important, even if you have to sit in a corner, lock the room, and believe it or not, if I have to write some very important emails, I would rather go into, if I didn't have the space, I would go into the washroom. Whatever works, my friend. Put on noise canceling headphones. Fire exit. I don't know if that's healthy enough these days. It's not right. So make the best of the situation that you have. I understand that these are challenging time, and they ask for challenging solutions or out of the box thinking. So you will have to do that eventually. Exactly what you said, the part about being at office and being able to do things at your own pace, uh, or and playing badminton or whatever sport along with it. Uh, that goes on to show that your boss is a supportive person, and then at the end of the day, what is your boss asking from you is results, is numbers. That's it. And that's exactly what I also focus on with my team. And I say, listen, I don't care about anything. I only care about numbers. I don't care what time you come to work. I don't care what time you go to work. Yes, maybe you have to abide by the HR principles. That's a different thing. But other than that, you don't have to answer me whether you're on your seat or not. As long as you give me that number at the end of the day, I'm a happy person. You're a happy person. But that gives much more responsibility on your head to be able to live up to that expectation. Because if you don't, then eventually the boss will have to step in and say, hey, your way doesn't work. So this is how it's going to work from now on, my way or the highway. So figure that out, my friend. Muhammad Fahad says, I prefer to do most of the work when everyone is asleep, preferred in the morning. Most of the tasks can be done in alone. Some meetings you must be doing. So Muhammad Fahad, yeah, I agree, but I think what you're your example is more related to my individual task. And right now, if we talk about the challenge that we're all going through in working from home, so we are dependent on our colleagues who are working from their home as well. So sometimes we will not be able to isolate the times. If there is a meeting, then there is a meeting, then there is no two ways about it. If you ask me honestly, my challenge is probably bigger than most of the people over here, and that is because I'm a full-time trainer. And in these times, I'm training from home, which means my training sessions are usually 4 to 5 hours long at a stretch, sometimes 8 hours long at a stretch. So imagine me having to manage that, working from home, and be online 6 hours, 8 hours at a stretch, talking just like I'm talking to you, talking like that for 6 hours stretch, and not having somebody bother me. So yes, it is a challenge, and that's where I have to sit down with my family and explain to them that, listen, guys, I mean, everybody has to work together and support each other. And imagine that I'm in my office. So if I was in my office, I was not at home, I would not be able to help out in a lot of stuff at home. So sometimes you also have to put that deadline. So for example, for people who also, especially for women who also manage their households, sometimes you will have to lock yourself and say, hey, if I was at work, if I was not at home, this thing would have to wait till I come back. And that would be, let's say, 5 or 6 in the evening. And so that's the way it's going to be even now. Right. So all of these things put together, again, like I said, there's no right or wrong. There's no specific technique. You've got to start off. And I don't want to overwhelm everybody by giving more methods. There are multiple methods, but they require a certain level of practice and a certain level of acquaintance with the prioritizations techniques. And then those are, think of them as an advanced and the level 2 kind of techniques, which have a bigger result, but then at the same time, they require a much higher planning and a much higher willpower as well. So we can look into that. I can do that as an individual consultation, or I can do another session for this as well as an advanced session. But it would not be very effective if we just go on to those techniques without implementing these in our lives. So try to do that. Please, please, please just stay connected with me even after the sessions, and then let me know how it has helped you, whether it has helped you or not, or would you want any as a specific consultation about this. So now moving on. Now, let me put you in a spot now. This is for everybody. Is how busy do you think you are generally in your life? Some people say I'm extreme. Yeah. So for us, it's very busy, very much. Right. So if I were to ask you now, this is something where you're using your notepad that I asked you to have to write down what are your activities? Why are you saying that you're very busy? Can you write down 5 items? You don't have to write in the chat if you don't want to share it with us. No problem. Work, kids, home for now. Yes, Nomi. No, generally speaking, because everything that you do in your life has now, I understand the landscape is a bit different, but then the general issues remain the same. Work, professional development, kids, and wife. Office, home, kids. Okay. All right. So consulting, new companies, plus digital marketing training, conference call, meetings, home, kids. All right. All right. So can you think of at least one other person who you think is busier than you? It could be somebody in your office, could be your boss, could be your dad, your mother, your uncle, aunt, some celebrity, somebody that you aspire as a businessman. Just one person. Do you think doctors? Farrukh Ahmed, Abbas Masood Saab, Boris Johnson. Doctors, I agree 100% doctors. So let me take the example of doctors. Yes, extremely important. The more we applaud them, as much as we applaud them, it can never be enough, because without them we'd all be extremely, extremely scared. But if if a nurse or if a doctor says to its patient, "I'm too busy, I cannot see you, please don't come to my clinic for the next 20 days," how would that make you feel? Right? Now, we don't, when we talk about ourselves, we think we are the busiest people in the world. But when somebody else tells us that for something that's related to us, somehow we don't want to take that excuse. We think it's an excuse and we don't want to take that excuse. Right? So another aspect to that, look at people who are actually making a huge difference in the world, such as doctors. I will give you some examples. Here are some examples. George Bush, he used to read 95 up to 95 books in a year while he was the president of the US. Sheryl Sandberg, even till today, you can look it up. She leaves home at 5:30 every day because she likes to have dinner at her home with her family, right? Intel CEO works straight from 8 to 6 consistently. Everybody knows about Richard Branson. Everybody wishes to be everywhere enjoying partying like Richard Branson. Do you know how many companies that he's done? We've all heard of Elon Musk. Elon Musk says, I have got to sleep 6 hours no matter what. So he sleeps 6 hours a day. Okay. And he keeps the 6 hours for his personal activities. Imagine somebody like Elon Musk saying, I need 6 hours for me time. We have 31 people in the chat, 32 people in the chat. How many of us are lucky enough to say that for ourselves? That I need, forget 6 hours, I need an hour for myself, right? So Elon Musk says, I need 6 hours a day for myself. 6 hours of sleeping, 6 hours for myself. That leaves me 12 hours. And in those 12 hours, he runs Tesla, he runs SpaceX, he runs Neuralink. Imagine the kind of time management guru he is. Legend, right? Why are they able to do all of these things? Only because of time management, only because of prioritization, only because of being in control of their emotions and responses to the environment around them. So this is something, take this as an inspiration. Take this as something that you want to achieve. Yeah, Partha, you're saying I look at work in my own space because it's doing something I like that helps me earn. I look at time as the time I take to travel to meetings. I love travel. Okay, that's a great thing, because if you love what you do, then you're not working, you're just having fun all the time, right? So that adds to your motivation. That's another very good thing to think about. But see, if I have somebody here wrote my name, I'm no way as important as the people over here or as you guys are, I'm sure. But I also try, I make sure that I have my time prioritized, I have my activities planned, I have my selected top items in the list, which will give me the 80% benefit. And I know that I should spend only 20% of my day to get that, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say is, when you take control of time, remember, you can negotiate with everything else in your life. You can negotiate with your friends, you can negotiate with your boss, you can negotiate with your relationships, you can negotiate with success, anything and everything. The only thing that you cannot negotiate with is time, and you can only manage time. So people who learn to manage time are actually in control of the entire world around them. So how are these people able to do? Imagine the president of the United States, probably the busiest guy ever, I mean, in the world. And there's a book that I read a while ago in which one of his staff members challenged him actually to read 100 books in a year. And he read 95 books in a year, but still he beat his staff. And at the end, he said, I was almost there, but the important thing is I beat you. So before I leave you guys, just please note this and keep this as your inspiration in front of you. Take a screenshot if you want to. The session will be available on YouTube after we're done. So I want to know now from you, what's in it for you? How will you use time management in your personal life? Because I want you to link all of these methods and all of these just things that we discussed about. I want you to connect it with your personal life. So Partha, you're saying that your personal issue with your personal time management is that you're dependent on others to complete tasks, and they don't value either my time or their own. Okay. Yes, that is the case, my friend. But you know what I do to them? I show them the 1440 slide. So you need to choose your battles. You need to choose your priority list. Raza, yes, we covered identifying time leaks not in a detailed way because naturally I cannot go one-on-one with all of you right now. But I told you that you have to look at your controllable items, starting with, which is common for us, is like irregular sleep patterns and your binge watchings and your procrastination. And then you will have to figure out your controllable items in that, list them down and work on those. Stop worrying about things that are beyond your control. So yeah, Faisal will manage my controllables in a better way. So the important part, Faisal, is that you need to first list down your controllables. You need to figure out what your controllables are. Partha, I would love to help out. Feel free to recommend, and we can have another session very soon once we have some people interested. Usman says, I will go forward by setting few tasks in to-do list instead of overwhelming my calendar with several. Yes, okay. Goal would be to earn the most important I can from my work to increase my personal return on investment as well. My return on energy. Yes, exactly. So return on energy is again coming back to 80-20 rule. Anyone else? I don't see. In fact, a lot of people are very, very quiet. No worries. All right. So just Raza. Okay, this is for Raza. Yes, that's a very, very good book to read. There's another book, in fact, that I would recommend. In fact, what I'll do is, I think a better way to do it is I will send you guys with an email list of around, how about 3 books that you can read, or you can listen to them on audiobooks. That will help you to take this to the next level. All right. So how about now you think about whether you want to learn a new skill? Do you want to take a new course? Do you want to start a new initiative or a project? Or do you want to start a charity or a business? Right now, everybody is also trying to help those people who are affected the most, like daily wage earners, due to this crisis. Try and start a charity for them. Help out in your own capacity. This is not something like me saying going out and make a Fortune 500 company or something like that. But start somewhere. Start to utilize the skills that you have. Implement them. 5-second rule. Yes, 5-second rule is a great suggestion, Hina. And the 5-second rule, I found it to be a little extreme because, especially for people who are not familiar with this, they can start off with it, but it's difficult to stick to it. It requires a lot of willpower. So, all right. So, guys, before we wind up, please look at these discussions in relation to your personal challenges, implement these. And like I said early on in the session, it will not work. Whatever we did, thank you very much for spending around 2 hours with me. But it will not work, my friends, if you do not start acting on it. My objective, there is only one way which I judge successes of my training session, is that if people start implementing the takeaways. I don't like people coming back to me for the same courses. I'm not like typical regular kind of trainers who would love their training consultancy to keep on going on and keep on coming back and saying, oh, we loved this program. Can you do it again? uh, all of those things. I don't like that. The way I rate myself is if somebody comes back to me and says, hey, we learned this in your session, we implemented it, it has changed our lives, it has helped us, thank you very much. That is success for me. And I request you all to basically start doing all of these things. So, for action, here's what I recommend. Reward yourself every time you achieve a milestone. That is the biggest and the easiest way to stay motivated. So how about you say, in fact, I think this goes for everybody here. How about you do this for a week? Okay, so the first thing that you do is understand what you want to do, look at those techniques, and identify what you have to do. Tie it to your a reward for yourself, anything, okay? And then look at yourself after a week, right? So here are my contact details. Feel free to connect with me. I'm available online on practically every platform. I also host a podcast on motivation and inspiration. We release, I do this with my wife, and we have, so me and my wife co-host the podcast with some guests every time we have a new guest. And we release 3 episodes in a month. So that's 1st, 10th, and 20th of every month. New episodes come out. And yeah, Raza, okay, all right. You have a request to touch multitasking. Let me just come to it. So if you have time, listen to the podcast. The link is here. And if you want to learn more, I have other training programs. Feel free to connect with me on a personal level. I would love to help out. I would love to do more programs like this. But more than that, the thing that will give me any kind of feeling of achievement would be if you implement this in your life and it actually helps you to gain more time and be better at time management. So before I say goodbye to all of you, I will just take one last request for thank you, Amir. Thank you so much. I also look forward to you. Please do share with me for once you take action and once you see the changes. Okay, Mustafa wants to share something. Can we please let him speak? And then I will just touch a little bit on multitasking like Raza requested before we call it a day. We still have a little bit of time remaining as per my request to you guys, and we'll try to keep it within that time. So over to you, Mustafa, please.
Hello.
Mustafa, are you?
Basically, I wanted to share a Turkish proverb which I have sent in a message as well. But as you have given me a chance, so I would like to reiterate here that no matter how long you have gone down the wrong road, turn back. It is said to be a
Yes, that's an
Turkish
excellent
proverb.
thing to say.
And with respect to your amazing, I would say, this session, and it
Thank you.
had been a very good learning opportunity. So I wanted to share this little piece of thought with you. Thank you
Thank you
so
very
very much.
much. Yes,
Brilliant
I
session.
agree
Really
100%.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I agree 100%. It doesn't matter how bad you think the situation is, it can still get better. The only thing that you have to do is to take action. If you have to turn back and correct your path, that's the thing that you have to do to improve. All right. So there was a request to touch on multitasking. All right. So very, very I'll touch on it on a basic level. I don't want to extend the session too much. First of all, thank you everybody for taking the time out. And multitasking is something that you can't really avoid at all, especially in this day and age, because we are so much connected to everything around us, whether it is our office or our personal lives, our relationships, our friends, our hobbies. We are so interlinked with each other. You make one small change, and the whole, it's like a tower that comes down, domino effect. It impacts everything. So the way I like to see multitasking is, it's basically it gives you, if you look at it in a positive way, and you learn to manage the multitasking bit properly, actually it can give you far better reward than focusing on one task. There's a very common rule of thumb that is followed, and which says, if you want to be expert in something, you've got to be doing it for 10,000 hours. So if we do basic calculations, how much time has it been since, let's say, since you were 13 years old, when you start to get slight control of your activities? How much time have you spent on a particular activity now, right? And you will see, every task that you do depends on the amount of time that you spend on it. So even if you're doing multitasking, but you have the times and time slots focused for them, you can grow to a master level in multiple tasks. I'll give you one example, simple basic example, today's example. This webinar that I'm doing, this training session that I'm doing, this is my first online experience of conducting a session, right? I had to learn this new technology because I realized this was the need of the day. I had absolutely no experience with this particular software that we're using, GoToMeeting. So what did I do? I had to learn how to set up a webinar. I had to learn how to send out those multiple emails that you guys must have got. I had to understand how to make sure that this goes on smoothly. I had to learn how to record this. I had to learn now what I'm going to do after this. I will make it available for everybody to refer back to it on YouTube. But so that means I'm doing multitasking, right? So you look at those, I always give examples of YouTube content creators these days. Everybody is a content creator. Everybody is a potential content creator. Even look at those so-called, when we say, cheesy kind of TikTok videos. But if you look at those videos, the amount of time that the creators spend and the amount of creativity that comes out, honestly speaking, it doesn't look like a job for a single person. But if you look at a content creator, like a YouTube creator, he's a scriptwriter himself. He's a makeup artist himself. He's a cameraman himself. He's an editor himself. He's a marketing guy himself. He is an SEO specialist himself, right? How many roles is he playing individually? If he were to do only one task at a time, he would have to hire a team of 15 people behind him, right? That's not very efficient when you look at these small time content creators. But people are able to do it only if you have that drive, if you have that interest, and you take action. So when it comes to multitasking, in your office role, in your work role, my advice would be, use the Pomodoro technique to start off. Take 25 minutes, okay? And in fact, combine Pomodoro and Snowball method. Take a task, do it focused with focus, take a break, maybe go to the next time. You can next task, you can improvise Pomodoro into multiple tasks, time slicing. But if you run away from multitasking, my friend, trust me, I don't see, unless and until you are somebody specialist like a surgeon, a specific type of surgeon, a specific type of an engineer specialist, somebody like that. I don't think anybody, any job, any kind of role in today's world will allow you to be independent and focused on only one task. So we can do a lot more in detail about multitasking and how to get on top of that. But I hope today's session was valuable for you guys, and I really, really, really thank you all. And I really wish you all the best. And I'm here to help out in any way that's possible. All right. Thank you very much. Goodbye and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Farrukh.